with distortion or anything like that. And if you've got any questions, throw in the chat or end. So I'll hand you over to Dave Denieffe because he's the man with the expertise and the one with the presentation. So thank you very much, everybody, and over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Shane. It's great to see so many here, and I'm looking around the room in a bit of awe with the range of experience of people that are here. It's an awful lot of people here who are very experienced chairs and very experienced in club administration. As Shane has rightly said, this is probably the first of hopefully many as we develop further resources to support club administration, club development, club support and club planning more broadly within Athletics Ireland. My background, the day job, I work in IT Carlow as an academic, as a manager here in IT Carlow, and but in my part-time I'm out most nights involved with clubs across a wide range of NGBs, and particularly Athletics Ireland, as Shane has said, but I've also done this with other organisations, particularly the GAA and a bit with Canoeing Ireland as well. So that's kind of to set the scene. And as Shane has said, this is the first of a series of training webinars for club officers. And probably the most important club officer role, if you were to pick one among many, is the role of the chairperson. So tonight, just a very short presentation, a few slides to basically start a discussion, plant a few seeds and a few thoughts there. And then we're going to follow with short presentations by three people who have all coming from different backgrounds. The first of these is Colm McNally, and Colm is a former chairperson of Lusk AC, and he'll also may draw from the current chairperson, Nicole Hodson, who's with him as well, but Colm will give his perspective. We'll follow that with a presentation, short description by Siobhan Kelleher, who's in South Galway AC, and again coming from a slightly different perspective of a newer club. And then our final club chairperson is the current chairperson of Drogheda and District AC, Ciara O'Reilly, who again will give a slightly different perspective. So you're getting very different perspectives, and what we hope is that this will then prompt people maybe who've got questions. So don't be afraid to use the chat, and we might even ask you if you want to raise a question, we'll unmute you. We do see this session lasting in total about 45 to 50 minutes in total. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off by just popping up the presentation. I hope you'll all be able to see it. I hope I have the authority to do it. Okay, you should all be able to see that there, guys. Sorry. Okay, so the role of a club chairperson, as I was saying, the chairperson is really one among many, and is very much the leader of the team. But if I was to say to the room here, give me one word to describe a chairperson, and if I was to say to you, throw out a couple of words, you'd all think of slightly different things, I'm sure. I'm just going to pop up here. I'd say most of you would have a word that probably falls broadly into one of these categories. That they must be decisive, they must be able to delegate, they must be able to communicate, they must be good spokespersons, they must be inclusive, they must be organized, they must be strong, they must be fair, they must be able to facilitate, they must be an ambassador for the club, they must be impartial. All of these words must be able to mediate. I suppose in small terms, they must be able to leave small buildings in single bounds almost. And they really have to be that voice of authority in the club. And I think if you look at that, most people can probably say, yeah, that our chairpersons and the best chairpersons have that kind of capability. So these kind of traits begin to shine through. And I suppose what we really want to get out is obviously the chairperson is really the principal officer on the club committee with key responsibility for planning, organising and managing the affairs of Athletics Ireland within the club. And most of our chair people, thankfully, are leaders. They have a good idea around where they want to bring their club to, how to progress it. They obviously, the key role that a lot of them serve, and it shouldn't be the only role they serve, is to take on the responsibility for managing club meetings. And what they should do from club meetings is be able to show actions arising from that. and to be able to function effectively and efficiently where decisions taken are acted upon. So basically what we're asking there is that there's always follow through from what a club committee would do. But fundamentally, the chairperson is responsible to the club committee, and people use different names for that committee, whether it's an executive or whatever, but that they take on that responsibility. So really, as to drive home the point, they are leading the team. And I suppose when I was talking to the RDOs last week about what does a club chairperson do, the one word that came through was team, that they are leading the team. The next was really that they really would have a plan for the club, that they would have a clear and communicated club plan and have some ideas. A lot of our clubs are very much operating from the day to day, week to week, month to month, and the best clubs are operating from year to year with a clear plan for where they're going. I suppose the other thing is to make sure the club is managed effectively. And you'll hear from a couple of our speakers talking later on how that role is distributed, how that role is delegated, and how you manage effectively. Obviously, upholding the rules of the organisation and is key. Representing the club. I mean, invariably, the club chairperson is the first person out there at events, as spokesperson, potentially even in the media, depending on how you manage your club. They're obviously key for responsibility when it comes to linking with county boards, athletics in the regional areas, Athletics Ireland, local authorities, different sports partnerships, other sports clubs. And again, it's obviously, the other one is that they're leading in the community. And the one that kind of came through, and this was discussed when I was talking with the RDO as well, that ability to hand on. That idea of passing the baton on to somebody else is a key part of the role. And I think people always say, look, I can never do the club chairperson. You know, everyone can. With support they can, and being leading the team, you can. Everyone can do it. And I think it's just being in position to know that, yeah, we do hand on, that we have the capability to do that. You're obviously looking for somebody with obviously excellent leadership skills, key planning skills, organizational, interpersonal, and a very good communicator, the ability to be able to bring people with them. Being impartial is obviously key. Respecting confidentiality is key, and delegating. And I think that's one of the key things when you'll hear from the others tonight is the whole idea of being able to delegate key tasks and to other officers. And if you do that, you will get people to buy in. And delegation isn't just handing over and say, you do it. It's supporting people when you do that. It's following up with people when you've done it. And I think that's part of the key. And again, the others will talk about that. Above all else, we are looking for good governance. We are looking for people basically to follow the key principles of leading, but controlling. And again, this is a key thing. We end up in some clubs that the balance can get wrong there, that people over control or micromanage. But being accountable as well. You are accountable to the club. You know, no club is basically is an empire. You know what I mean? So it's basically being open to your club, working effectively within that, and obviously behaving with integrity and behaving in an ethical way, that you don't, I suppose, do something that's wrong and that's unfair on people. Things they don't tell you about the job, and I always laugh. This one is the poor old club chairperson takes on nearly every job if they're not careful. But basically, it's to know the rule book, to have a good knowledge of Athletics Ireland, have time to do the job, have a genuine interest in what's involved in athletics, be motivated to set high standards for the club, and I suppose above all else to recognise that the club and the connectivity to the wider community and what it contributes. And I think you're going to hear that from every club chairperson about the role of their own club in their own environment. If you're in the middle of a big city, big town, or you're out in the country, the role of the club as part of the community. And that's become really, I suppose, more and more evident as we've gone through this pandemic. So that basically helps to set the scene for what we're looking for in club chairperson, and I suppose to plan some of the ideas. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask maybe Colm to talk for a few minutes on, from his perspective, the role of the club chairperson. Colm, can I ask you to come in?
Hi, how are you doing? Hi, hello everybody. I'm glad to be asked to do this first and foremost, and I think an awful lot of people, we get an awful lot of information from listening to each other, because being part of a club is always a learning curve as well. So I'm sorry, I'm not very good at remembering things, so I had to write some stuff down. So I might feel as if I'm reading stuff, which I am. So when I took over, we had about 100 members in the club. They were mostly families, so we knew each other, and we had a small committee, and through our brilliant chairman, who is Seamus Flynn, he's Dublin secretary now. We had made good progress in restarting the club, but we also had made plenty of mistakes, but we learned from them, which was a major thing for us to do, to learn from our mistakes. However, changes particularly around child welfare were becoming law, so we needed to create a better structure. I wasn't very good at keeping notes. As I said, I have never been in a managerial role, so this was very alien to me, but I could talk for Ireland, so I used this to persuade others to help me and achieve what we needed to get done. Our previous chairman, as I said, Seamus, worked tirelessly in establishing the club. I had huge ongoing support from him when I took over. I think I had nearly a year, if not more, for the position to prepare for the position, which made the transition pretty seamless. When I took over, he stepped back for a couple of months from commenting at meetings or anything like that, to allow me space to work. But we also spoke privately on almost a daily basis. We have an unwritten rule in Lusk Athletic Club that the position should not be occupied for longer than 4 years by any one person, but that's not binding. It depends on the situation, but we do agree that long-term chairmanship doesn't really work for anybody. Lusk AC have people in official positions, but realistically, we work through a core focus group of about 5 people. Decisions are made between the group. We promote all members to take ownership of their club and often ask for help in certain projects, and always have people coming forward. So you need to ask people for help and they will come forward. My tenure as chairman was focused on building membership and getting the Lusk 4 Mile re-established after many years' absence. I was no expert on how to achieve both, but I gathered a small team around me, and together we achieved both. As mentioned previously, child welfare laws were being put in place for clubs, and for us, the Athletics Ireland club mark was the key for us putting everything in place. Getting the club mark involved, putting together a constitution and a club development plan. We kept it simple by copying another club's documentation and changed it to suit ourselves. When people seen that we were very professional in our approach to coaching and management, it attracted membership. And in less than 2 years, we had 300 membership. We have a lot of different sports in the Lusk catchment area, and we knew we couldn't compete with an awful lot of these sports because we're on the train and we're on the bus. So people getting into Dublin City is very, very easy. So we had to compete with not just our own community, but the wider Dublin area. So we focused on Little Athletics and Fit for Life, and that's where our membership began to grow rapidly. We promote club for all the family, for all your life. That's our motto, really. All families can train together. From my experience, I found it extremely rewarding to grow the club that our members are proud to be part of. My advice for people is to be prepared to make mistakes. Ask other clubs for advice, because sure as anything, they have the similar problems. At this stage, just want to say that when we went to training courses on coaching and this, that, and the other, we found that everyone had a lot of problems. So it's good to talk on the sidelines of these events. Similarly, we had an awful lot of help from Raheny, Denora and Brothers Pierce when we were growing our club, and the coaches were more than willing to help us at any stage because they had made the same mistakes themselves over the years. Promote support for each other in your club, no matter what their level of fitness. If you need a volunteer like a bricklayer, electrician, a cake maker, then post a message up, because the people are in your club. You'll be getting support, guaranteed. Our motto is health, fitness and fun in equal shares. It's the philosophy of our club, and it's important for everyone to abide by that club philosophy. So they're the notes I have. So I just hope that people can learn a bit. When I finished, Nicole took over, and she has her wishes or her goals that she wants to achieve when she's in charge of the club. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Colm. I like the idea of being able to hand over after 4 years. I think that's one of the key things of getting people through. It keeps the club fresh as well. It's a really good idea. What you begin to realise, guys, as we go through tonight is that the problems that clubs face are remarkably similar, irrespective of size, irrespective of location. They're all much the same. And I'm delighted to hear Colm talking there about the support received from other clubs, because I think if you're engaging with clubs like that, that's great. Everyone, that raises the bar for everyone, and I think that's really good. Our next speaker comes from South Galway A.C. on the other side of the Shannon from us here. So I'm going to ask Siobhan Kelleher, who has been club chairperson in the past when South Galway were starting up about 10 years or so ago. I'm going to ask maybe Siobhan, are you okay to come on, Siobhan?
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks very much for inviting me on the call. So my name is Siobhan Kelleher. My background is I'm a primary school teacher. I was originally a member of Loughrea Athletics Club and ran as a juvenile, and moved to South Galway. And when I moved here, there was actually no athletics in the area. There was a South Galway Athletics Club about 20 years before that. So myself and a few others got together when our kids kind of came of age, that our kids were ready to get involved. So we said, God, we had a great experience as juveniles, and we'd love our kids to be involved in athletics. So a group of us got together. Now, when we first started back in 2011, we actually started just with the senior committee, and because we had to get coaches in place and guard the vetting done and everything. So 6 months later, we started up our juvenile committee, and currently I'm the juvenile rep, let's say, on the senior committee, and I'm the current secretary of the juvenile club and coaching coordinator. Now, in our first few years, our senior club, how we worked and developed was the senior club focused on Fit for Life, and then they progressed into marathon running. And in the last 2 years, our seniors have actually branched into track and field and cross country. And each year we have 2 road races. We have the Gorgeous Gort and the BDN 10K. The juvenile club went from having just 30 juveniles in our first year to now having 260 juveniles. And we have juveniles coming from 8 parishes in South Galway. In the early years, we actually got great support from the Galway County Board. In particular, there's a man there called James London, and gave us great support and advice. And also the County Board was very good in the first year and a half, where they we had no money. So we entered competitions for free. They gave us a certain kind of quota for the first year and a half. As our numbers grew then, and we started to win medals, and we were getting very excited about it all, so we decided that there was a great need to develop our coaching. So our whole coaching structure has, if you like, the way it has evolved over the past years, and where we are now at the moment is that in our juvenile side, we have 20 juvenile coaches. So we have 2 per age group, 2 per under 8s, under 9s, etc. And they train twice a week. And then on a Friday, what we have is the specialised training. So kind of for our teenagers, our elites that are making it to the All-Irelands. And we also then saw the need that we needed specialised coaches. So for example, we have 2 middle distance running and race walking coaches. We have 2 sprint lead coaches, and we have a hurdles coach. And we're currently trying to further develop that, where we'll have a jumps and a throws coach as well. The other thing that we're trying to now at the stage 10 years in, we rent facilities, or we're allowed to use the local GA grounds, or we go to local parks in Oranmore or in Gort or in Cool Park. So we now at the moment have got a subcommittee formed where we have 3 from our senior committee and 3 from our juvenile committee, and they're looking at the prospect of maybe getting land and building a track for South Galway. So kind of from my experience as being a chairperson and currently a secretary, just a few tips, I suppose, that I'd like to pass on is, the first thing is know the rules. You know, the rule book, the Athletics Ireland rule book, you're forever being asked questions, you know, and you go, hold on, I might have to look that one up. But definitely, if you can, you know the rules, or certainly in particular in the areas in which you have athletes competing in, you know, to a high standard. I think it's very important to have a present on the county board. You know, for two main reasons, is that you know what's going on, you learn a great deal at your county board, and as well that the Jure Club will have a voice. As I said, we're still developing very much so, and a big thing when you're developing is, you know, we're constantly in the process of finding coaches, getting new coaches. So just when you're selecting your coaches, I suppose kind of things we have learned and are learning is that coaches that we found really good, I've kind of branched them into 3 groups. Teachers, they're great for crowd control. They're great for, so we have a lot of primary and secondary school teachers, and they might be coaching kind of our younger kids. Parents themselves who were former athletes, we've tapped into that, and they've got great knowledge, great experience, and they're very enthusiastic. Then our 3rd group as well is of parents really of athletes who are really good. Those parents are going to hang around. If their kids are successful, they're the parents that want to be there. And so hence we're tapping into parents like that as well to become coaches in the club or to be on our committee. So that's the next point. When you're filling roles on the committee, we also kind of tap into the skills that parents have. So for example, our current chairperson is a principal, Edel of a primary school. Our treasurer is an accountant. Our equipment manager is a quality surveyor, you know. So we're really trying to use the skills people have. So they're experts already in those areas. Now it is hard to fill all the roles, you know, but it is helpful if you can get people that already know what they're at. In all clubs, we run into problems. We've had 1 or 2, and the way we solved that was at committee level. We created a policy so that if this arose again, this is how we would deal with the situation. I'm going to jump on a point Colm just said there a minute ago as well, which I would totally agree with, is in particular when you're at other athletics competitions, you'll meet coaches from other clubs and talk to them. You get great ideas. I think that's the one thing we all miss in the last year, is not meeting up with you know, other coaches and club officials we meet when we go to Tullamore or other places like that. So definitely you're always learning, you know, you admire their athletes and you'd say, what are you doing with that athlete? Or, you know, and that always, we're always learning in that regard. And that's something I learned from my coach, Mary Barrett, when I was a juvenile. And even to this day, she's always telling me something new she just learned, and she's a long time in the game. Another point as well is to be fair. It's very hard as us, most of us that are involved, we're a lot of us anyway, are parents, and it's very easy to be biased to your own. I think as a chairperson or on the committee, we have to be very fair, considerate of all and inclusive of all. And the last point I'd like to bring up is, and it was touched on as well, David mentioned earlier, you know, you can very easily take on too much, and you really have to share the workload. I would say I myself have fallen guilty of that. I've been secretary now for a number of years, and we have a rule in the club that you're only supposed to be secretary for 4 years, or in a committee role for 4 years. But unfortunately, we're not abiding by. I'm rolling into the 6th year. But what we did this year, and it has really worked, we split the secretary role into 3 roles. And that has helped greatly. So it's now like obviously you're secretary for the minutes and communication, but we have broken into a registrar role and a competition secretary, and that has really helped. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. As I said, we're only 10 years old, and we're working really towards developing our coaches. And now our next big adventure is to try and maybe look to have a track. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Siobhan. That was great. It's great to see we've got a few questions coming in on the chat. I'm going to take the questions at the end, but there is one comment. It's from Kevin O'Donoghue, just echoing Siobhan's comments around finding people suitable for roles. That skills audit, that matching of skills or maybe backgrounds to potential roles. That idea of a accountant being a club treasurer or a quantity surveyor looking after a facility or whatever, you know, development. So that's kind of just that's an interesting point, just to see that. There are about 3 or 4 other questions which I'll take after our next speaker. Our next speaker is, as I said earlier on, is Ciara O'Reilly from Drogheda and District AC, and I first came across Ciara. Ciara was one of the participants in the first set of Forerunners, which is run by Leanne O'Hora, who I might ask to talk about Forerunners at the end of the session. But I'm going to ask maybe Ciara, who is currently the chairperson in Drogheda and District, to come on. Ciara, you okay there?
Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks for having me, David. Very nervous to talk to this many people. I've been with Drogheda and District for about 12 years myself, and the club is 22 years old now. We started out differently to most clubs, as in we only had senior or masters members for the first 10 or so years. And then we branched out into Fit for Youth and eventually Little Athletics. The big difference for me, I agree with everything the previous two speakers have said, but we have another aspect in our club, as in we bought a field about 5 or 6 years ago in Drogheda, and we've been developing that for the last few years. We've put in an all-weather track and we've managed to host events, etc. But getting that field meant a mortgage, which meant a company, which took us to a whole new level of organisation. We suddenly had to be very serious about our structures. Our numbers had increased, and so what was just a main club committee could no longer handle the workload of such a big club, which went to 3, 4, 5, nearly 600 members. So we gave a lot of thought, and we had a lot of meetings, and we came up with strategies and plans and structures. And we now have an athletics committee, we have a land committee, we have a juvenile coaching committee, and we now last year finished with nearly 600 members, almost 200 of which were juveniles. Whereas a few years ago, when I first joined DDAC, we probably only had about 60 to 80 members. So we've grown hugely over the years. The biggest help we've had is similar to what Siobhan said about roles. The previous chair to me was a project manager, Angus O'Connor, and he took a very organised, strategic approach to being chair, and I was vice chair to him for 5 years. So we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy in planning and putting together structures and strategies that would go forward when we're long gone. He never planned to be chair for that long. That's not something we'd recommend either. And this is my 3rd year as chair, so it'll probably be my last. Definitely, if I got one more year, that would definitely be the height of it. But we have found that we have our club committee, and then we have our company board. So we have different members on each. Our treasurer is a management accountant. She's absolutely fantastic. And when you're dealing with a mortgage and a company, everything has to be completely 100% professional and by the book, and she keeps us right in that way. And the same with spending, because you're now into huge money when you're talking about developing a facility. Fundraising is a massive thing. We have fundraising committee also. So we work very hard for the Drogheda 10K and the race series to bring money into the club, and having a dedicated person or persons to drive fundraising is so important once you start to have your own facility. We're also all the time trying to develop our coaching. We have 30 odd coaches, most of whom are at least level 1. We have, I think, 8 or so level 2 coaches, and we have someone in the process of doing level 3. It's very important to keep driving all the time and enable your coaches and facilitate them to learn all of the time. Every day is a school day for all of us. We're so new to juveniles in a lot of ways that we've had to learn. We've a lot of mummies and daddies who've come on board to coaching having never been involved in athletics, and then we have some older athletes who are parents themselves who've been with the club since the start, who are fantastic coaches and much more familiar with the rule books and everything. So the big learning thing for me has been I take on too much. That's well documented. It's a bit of a running joke at this stage, but I'm getting much better. And if you're going to be a chair, you have to learn to sit back. You have to learn to sit back, because there are so many other things going on that you must keep an eye on and be able to be available. And you can't be available as a chair if you're stuck in the weeds somewhere organising a graded race, or if you're constantly putting yourself up for every little job that has to be done. Most people love to help. They're only dying to be asked. And most people love to be asked because you value their contribution, and you need to show them and thank them all the time and recognise their contributions, however big or small. I think that's a big thing. Also, in terms of coaches and parents and getting them to volunteer, you'll notice the ones who hang around when their kids are training and watch the training. They're nearly always only happy to be asked. They're just standing there waiting around, whereas the ones who drop and go are probably less available. So you have to use your noggin a fair bit and see who you can pull in. When you bring squads to races or whatever, the parents are always there, always happy to do small jobs like giving out numbers, and that's how you really start to bring them all in. And then you offer to facilitate training. You use your RDO, use Athletics Ireland, use your county board. That's what they're there for, and everybody's happy to work together. I've learned loads from our county board in Louth. I've been attending the meetings for years. I helped out on the county board, help out at events. And therefore, when it's time for us to need help with something, we can happily go and ask for help. And we know the people that are there, and we know they have the experience if we're lacking. What else for me? Learning to delegate is a big thing, and not getting caught up in small jobs. We have an athletic strategy, which is a long-term dream, which will end in elite athletes. We have a huge Fit for Life membership and huge Meet and Train membership. They're just as important as the small minority who will go on. And you have to value those members. They're your bread and butter. They're the ones who will keep paying their membership every year and enable you to develop your club and your facility. What else? I wrote down lots of notes. Your club plan is very important. Our structures are very well laid out, and they're shown at AGM every year. You know, your AGM is where people have a voice. Make sure it's an open AGM, not just someone standing at the top of a room telling everybody what's what. Invite questions, invite challenges. You mightn't always like to be called out on how you're doing things, but really a good spat about how things are being done is the best way to come up with the best way to do things, you know, and let people contribute. And if you have those who criticize all the time and you feel that they're not involved, get them involved. Let them help you decide how to do it. Let them feel that they're part of the decision-making process. As a chairperson, as myself, an individual, I try to communicate that all decisions are made as part of our 10-person committee. They're not ever decisions made by me, Ciara. And sometimes if you're talking to people, you forget that you're representing your committee at all times. You know, if you're talking to someone when you're out in a long run, you're still the chairperson of your club. So you have to be careful that your own views and opinions are in line with your committee and all the decisions that you make and the views that you have. I think that's all I could say probably. If anyone ever has any questions with regard to facilities development, we'd be more than happy to help. We've a lot of really great people who've done great work in that area. Thanks.
Well done, Ciara. Thank you very much for that. And again, just to add to what Ciara has said there, all of the speakers tonight are more than willing. We will share email addresses, and if you have any questions, because you probably could see your own clubs in much of what was discussed tonight in terms of where different clubs are, you know, in terms of Ciara talking about a club who have a facility, Siobhan talking about a new club, and Lusk a club are going through rapid development and being successful in that one. Some really interesting points there. Thanks to our three speakers. The really inspiring stuff, guys. Really shows that the job can be done. There's a couple of questions there that we just maybe throw out. First one, the big one, of course, is getting people involved. How do you do it? How do you get volunteers? Do you have do you have the magic solution for that? Anybody got the magic answer? Maybe ask Colm. Do you have any ideas on how you recruit volunteers?
Yes, we normally recruit from the Little Athletics parents. From the very start, Little Athletics was fundamental to the development of the kids anyway. But parents stay around for Little Athletics because they're only age 6, they're age 7. They're very, very young, particularly in winter time. They get cold very quick. Now we have we have a lady at the moment she doesn't like people standing around. So she, like as you said, as Ciara and Siobhan said, they bring get them a job like taking the membership in, particularly now with the COVID. You need to take the COVID lists and they need to be documented. So there's little jobs with Little Athletics. It runs to the toilet as well. So when we get the parents in, we teach them the basics of coaching. And as their children grow up, they go into juvenile proper, and then all of a sudden they're 14 years of age and the parents are still there coaching. So for us, that's where it starts. The parents themselves came in as part of Fit for Life and maybe even got really good at running. So they're more eager to learn how to coach also because they want to learn for themselves. So basically, I think that's where it comes from.
Thanks, Colm. Siobhan or Ciara, any views on that?
Yeah, as well, we start with the parents of the younger children, you know, And like that, if there's someone hanging around a lot, watching what's going on, you know, you'll find out what I'm terrible for finding out what do people work at or have the experience in athletics, and, you know, have they an interest? Why are they staying around? You know, are they actually interested? You know, and you'll find out they were a runner, they're from a different county, you know, or for an example, another one is an inter-county hurler I have as a coach now, he's a teacher too. But, you know, and they're just mad keen in sport, and you have to ask. Some people, they're just too shy, they won't volunteer, but they're delighted to be asked. And the same with, there was one evening I was messing with lists, and I could see he started coaching, he was getting very frustrated with me, and I twigged, I said, are you good at spreadsheets? And he says, I am. So I said, great, you're going to take over this list in the evening, you know, doing the lists for me. And he jumped at it, you know. So it's you know, people are willing to do things, you know. Now there are some, I have got loads of no's, absolutely loads of no's, and people covering their face and they see me coming and she's going to ask me to do a job, you know. So, you know, you can just be really lucky and get some great people, but like that, be prepared to get a no as well.
Ciara, from your perspective, any tips?
Yeah, so even from my own training and running with people, you know, we find a graphic designer or you find someone who can contribute something to your club. There's always something, and they haven't joined a club usually just to run. If they wanted to just run, they'd be off out running on the roads. They want to be part of something, and the more you pull them into you, the more you all feel part of the same team. And another thing that I'd on my notes that I didn't mention was, you have to remember as well that they're all volunteers, and you may have a high standard for how you like things done, and someone comes along and they're so willing and they're so helpful. They might not just have exactly the skills or the high standard that you want, but you're not paying them. They are volunteering. So it's up to you to help them get better at what they're doing, or redirect them to something else, or, you know, it's just about seeing how people are. It's about watching people a lot of the time. And parents are great. You know, if kids in the club, then they're going to hopefully help out somewhat, you know.
Thanks. Sean, yeah, come on back in.
Just add to a point Ciara made there, you know, when you ask them to be a coach, and if they haven't experienced before, as Ciara said, you know, what we have started to do is we'll say, would you like to get involved in coaching? I'll get you to shadow another coach and I'll put you on a training course. So don't worry, you won't be left alone with a group of kids to coach them. So that, and we then have them about 6 months or to a year shadowing another coach before they actually are given a small group of their own. Okay.
Thanks, Siobhan.
And I just add, some of our little athletics, like little kids have grown up now, they're in TY, and we always get our kids to do an assistant coach's course during TY. It's their best way into coaching. They're giving back straight away, and they're more than willing to help the younger kids around them.
Yeah, and I've seen that in a number of clubs in Tynet, even to the achievement of Goshka, for example, and they get a bit of coaching and suddenly they have the confidence and they're off running. You know, they're off, literally off running. They're off getting the kids up and going. A lot of the things we've been talking about tonight, and it's a question there kind of saying the focus is very much on the juvenile membership and getting the parents of juveniles on board. But they've also raised the question there from Brian Murphy: how do you get in? How do you actually bring in, recruit and keep members, particularly senior members? Has anybody got any ideas in that one? I know Siobhan, you have a senior club or connected to what you're doing. Do you want to maybe talk about keeping or recruiting and retaining?
Yeah, that's one. Our senior side would be quite small compared to our juvenile side. As I said, you know, it was a Fit for Life. It's very much marathon runners, and as I said, we've only recently branched into track and field and cross country. So yeah, we're that hasn't really expanded. But what our aim now is we've got to this stage where we're 10 years in. So I have juveniles now that are 18 and 19. And it's to hold them, and they're going to transition, you know, they're now junior and then to progress into senior. So that's actually a challenge we have going forward. Will we be able to convert them from juvenile to senior? So we're just not quite there at the minute, but we're on the verge of that. You know, will we succeed in doing that?
Ciara, in terms of Drogheda?
Yeah, so we've huge adult membership. We were an adult only club for half of our lifetime. We have it's very organized. We have group leaders. Our groups are coded by the colors of the rainbow, from the red group down to the violet group. And each group has a group leader, and they're given, we have a director of coaching, and we have a road coach who looks after what's the biggest part of our membership, which is adult road running members, and they have training plans for whatever they want. They train in groups, they run together, not with COVID obviously, but they really become part of a team. You know, it's all graded based on times. You could take from that it's very competitive. It's actually not. It's just how we organize it. It's not highly competitive. We do have an element of competitive runners, marathon runners, road runners, cross-country teams and everything. But for the most part, I think what makes it work well is the little teams of the coloured groups. They know they're going to run with people of the same ability. We set up messenger groups so they can all chat to each other. They're all following the same plan and they all target a race whenever and work together. And we've done that for donkey's years, and we've 300 and odd adults on the go. Takes a bit of organisation, but we've got good coaches.
It's nothing like word of mouth, as Kevin O'Donoghue just said here in the chat.
Well, yeah.
Success breeds success, and people enjoying it will tell other people they're enjoying it. If it's well organised, well structured, and people are getting something from it. Colm, do you want to come in there?
No, I'm all right at the moment.
No
I'm just trying to think. There is things that prop up from time to time when you're dealing with coaching and you're dealing with, say, coaches are not getting along, or a parent is having difficulty with a particular coach, and you have to deal with these things. But at the end of the day, we've got to remember that we're all volunteers. Like in Lusk, none of our coaches are paid. We have a level 3 coach. We've a lot of level 2 coaches. We've an awful lot of level 1 coaches, and the people are always very interested in learning. It's just a matter of getting them in there in the first place. But I'd always just remember that you're a volunteer at the end of the day, and there's nothing you can do if people are disagreeing with what you can do. People will leave also, you know, just as quick as they join, but you've done nothing wrong. You've done your best for them. And that's the attitude I think all chairpersons are going to have. You know, don't take yourself too serious. Don't take your club too serious. Everybody, you're working for your community and for the health of your community at the end of the day.
Fair point, Colm. And it's a point actually raised by Conor Murray in the chat there earlier on, was how do you deal with conflict? And I think the key thing there is having clear policies and procedures. We were discussing this the other day, and we were talking about the chairperson was saying the need to develop a relays policy for selecting juvenile relay teams, because it does lead to conflict and people have been there, you know. So I think Ciara, we could probably echo that need for having clear processes.
Absolutely. We have a very it's not unique, and it's really, really simple, but it works really well. We have a box, a shared folder. It's called box.com. And in there we have procedures for everything. So we run Couch to 5K 3 times a year. If my Couch to 5K coach leaves the club, I can pick out a document there that says how you organise a Couch to 5K, how many coaches you need, what insurance you need, what numbers work best together. All our various Couch to 5K plans are in there. Where do you get the t-shirts? What races to target? What price range? And we took that approach with everything. So we have the same procedure for how to organise the Drogheda 10K, which is a monster size race, but it's all written down. So if whoever organises it walks away someday, that information is there for the next chairperson. Same with all our finances. We operate it the same as you would a company, because it is a company at the end of the day. And I know clubs are not companies in general, but they are a business in a sense, you know, as in you're looking after a service for people. So if you approach it that way and you look after everything as if you're expecting to leave, you know, everything I do, I upload to the box, every document, every letter. So there's records, same as your club secretary, all minutes, all records, all must be carefully filed and uploaded, so that if we have a dispute about something, oh, that was in the minutes a couple of years ago, you need to be able to find that. You know, it's simple stuff. And I'm not meaning to patronize anyone, but these were all learning curves for us over the last number of years.
And in 20 years' time, they'll be great for the book, The History of Drogheda and District. Yeah. You know, really, that's a good idea. There's actually a couple of teams have cropped up in the chat. You probably can see there's a lot going on in the chat here at the moment. One question was that idea of moving up from being a juvenile club only, or predominantly juvenile focused, to becoming a senior club. And again, probably again, I don't know if any, and Siobhan, you've spoken about that challenge. You're trying to figure out how to step up to that one. I think that's a common theme that maybe we need to come back to. I don't know, Colm, do you want to have you any tips on that? And I know you have a lot of senior athletes as well.
Yeah, our juvenile, our sort of teenage years became very successful. We had a 5-year plan that we would get an All-Ireland medal. After year 2, we actually had 3 All-Ireland medals. I mean, particularly at sports that were very technical, such as pole vault, and we got into the other sports such as hammer. Our track and field were doing well. They were getting to finals, but we weren't getting an awful lot of people to national finals. So by getting kids to national finals, it sort of motivated an awful lot of juveniles. Now, currently we're in a situation where a lot of our kids, we'd 1 or 2 kids were 16, 17, 18, but now we're getting an awful lot of kids, particularly girls, that are staying on in the club, and they're starting to transition from juvenile into adults, and it's a totally new learning curve for us. Putting training plans together that try and get the best out of that child has been a problem. Not that it's a problem for us, but it's a new challenge for us. Whereas before, we just trained everybody in every event that we could, but now the children are starting to specialize, and we need to have specifically focused work for that particular child. So that's a new challenge for us, that more coaches are being put to a few children rather than one coach that can deal with 20 children. So I don't know, I'll be looking at other clubs and be going again asking questions with other clubs to see how they coped with that. So
okay. Yeah, there's also in the chat, there's a lot of discussion at the moment around paying of coaches. And do you pay for coaches? And I think I'm looking at 3 club chairpersons who don't pay for coaches. Yeah, I can see that. And people are talking about maybe specialise and so on, and the challenges. And there's a few points there around competing with that.
I think we're qualified enough. I think we, as I said, we have a level 3 coach and we have a lot of level 2 coaches. The coaches are volunteers, and they've earned their qualification by going to these workshops week in, week out, year in, year out. And I don't think it's nice for somebody, a club, to come in and start paying a coach that is demanding money for something that they're similarly qualified in. You know, a parent will come from somewhere. You know, I don't know. I that's just my attitude. Other clubs are maybe different. Maybe if a club wants to focus on elite athletes, yes, maybe so. But we're a community club, and we have volunteers at the end of the day for our community. That's all I can say on that.
Ciara, from Drogheda's perspective, or from your own perspective?
Yeah, well, just recently, we still have one athlete, Ty Donnelly, who is he's in really good position. He will run for Ireland, and our coaches were able to say, look, we've given as much as we can to Tyg. We need to do something for Tyg. So Tyg has started to train with Dublin Track Club, and he's doing phenomenally well up there. He's still on great terms with us. He's still a member of our club. You also have to know when to let go. We were prepared to bring in coaches for Tyg, but actually the training group with Phelim is better. It works well for Tyg. He has people of his own ability to train with and everything, but he's still on really good terms with us and really good terms with his coach in Drogheda. And that's, the door it's open, but the person's not going to go and close it after them. You just try to hold on to them as best you can, but you have to do what's best for the athlete, especially when they get to that level. And, you know, we have, I think these days, you'll have an awful lot of people in your club, maybe, well, for us with adults, we have a strength and conditioning coach in the club who is a gym instructor, which we didn't know. So now that person gives classes over Zoom during COVID and will continue core classes afterwards. These are the little extras that you mightn't just have from your regular coaches, but you might actually find you're able to do that. Or within the county, we've Christian Mass on the county board provides a fantastic facility on a Sunday morning up in Bush in Carlingford, and has done for years, where you can bring children, juvenile athletes from under 13 up, for specialised long jump, throws or endurance coaching. So anyone that we feel is good enough, and if we feel we're lacking in that area, we're lacking in throws in a big way. We don't have a throws coach. We've only just recruited someone and we're starting to train them up. So we send those kids to Carlingford on Sunday mornings. there's a lot to be gained from your county board and from Athletics Ireland if you ask your RDO what's going on in your county.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That probably brings to another point that's been on the chat as well, was the point of how do we get more support from other chairpersons, and Christian actually fed into the chat saying get involved in the county board, be the person who goes to the county board, be able to connect there, because you get a huge amount of support. And I would agree completely with that when you see that networking happening. But the fact that there's so many here tonight, there's clearly an appetite for discussions like this to happen and for this kind of conversation to take place, maybe through the county boards, maybe through the regions, or indeed maybe in a similar session like this one. Like we will capture what's in the chat and we will use to feed that into guidance notes that we produce. In fact, Ciara, you're so popular that Longford AC say they want you to come up and talk to them about developing their facility. So you might regret giving out your
no problem.
Yeah, so that's great. But again, I think it's about, there's a real appetite there for this and realization that there is support there as well. Siobhan, do you want to come back in there?
Just in relation to hiring of coaches, none of our coaches are paid, but what we did do was bring in an expert coach from somewhere else in Galway or Connacht and actually coach our coaches just on maybe with the beginner coaches, and then actually, let's say for a more technical event, you know, we brought in a hurdles coach and we did pay for that, but we don't pay anyone to coach our athletes. Okay.
We've had that from the county too. We've had coaches come to our club to coach the coaches.
Yeah.
And the RDOs do supply things like run, jump, throw.
And Paul McKee has coached plenty of us.
I just see we have one girl, she's a steeplechaser, and we've been doing an awful lot of work with her. I see Bashir is on here. We emailed Bashir, and Bashir took time to come back to us, but he's since then he's contacting us almost weekly, asking us. We have our training plans, and he's asking for the training plans to see what we're doing, and he's saying whether we're doing too much or too little or everything's just right. So there is the help there. I learned enough. I see Colette Quinn here. Colette, I learned an awful lot from Colette with high jump, and basically how to keep the kids, give them structure and give them proper training. So the people are out there, you know, so go look for help.
And that's a really good, probably last point. There is help out there, there is support out there, and go look for it. Lillian, I know you want to talk about the forerunners. I mentioned earlier on when introducing Ciara, but I might want to say a few words on that.
Sorry.
No, that's no problem, Ciara.
Hi guys, sorry, Lillian is my name. I'm actually acting as the Women's Sport Officer with Athletics Ireland. One of the great things that I actually noticed, what I was thrilled to see, that when this course or webinar was being organised, to see the likes of, I can name them all here, I've Ciara O'Reilly's on board, Nicole Hodson, Liz, Nuala, Anna, like we have fantastic women who came through the Forerunners program, and they're all here speaking, and they've done some fantastic work. For anyone who doesn't really know what the Forerunners program is, it's a female leadership program which is trying to encourage more women to get involved, create a new network of people, and it's a really good opportunity to just mix with other like-minded women that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so before, maybe within your area, or you're just interested in exploring a little bit more about leadership in a sense of equipping you with the necessary skills to lead both yourself, but also lead within a better capacity within your club. And we offer a mentoring program, and obviously the fact that you become involved in a networking program with all the participants, and it has been very, very beneficial. And it's for the women. There might be some lads here that might want to come on board, put on a wig, put on a dress, whatever you want, we'll accept you. But what we would like, if there are women involved in this call, there's absolutely no problem. Please touch base with ourselves. Hopefully come September I don't even want to, I'm actually not even going to jinx it at the moment, but come September we will be hopefully offering another Forerunners program, and it would be fantastic if we could get some more women like yourselves involved and get you on board, because we do offer both a coaching kind of perspective and a club development perspective, and also a communication perspective. And I think what I was most happy to see was we supplied some formal education and learning through workshops and presentations and so on, but the women on board really learned, I suppose, more from each other, and I learned a great deal from themselves. So if there's anybody who wants to get involved, please don't be afraid to get in contact with me or any of the other regional development officers, and they can help you get in contact with ourselves. But I also noticed, actually, I think Irene's on the call as well, and like you can really have seen people from when we first met back in February 2020, they've really grown, not just as people, but as leaders within their own clubs. And again, anyone who'd be interested, we'll accept you all. So thanks a million, guys, for that.
Thanks very much, Liliane. Just to say thank you all very much for being with us tonight. What it's probably proven to myself and the RDOs is that there's a huge appetite for this kind of work around club administration and development and support. So we will develop that. And just before we wrap up, I would like personally say thank you to our three club speakers, to Colm from Lusk, to Ciara from Drogheda, and to Siobhan from South Galway. It's really been brilliant, and just to say thank you all very much, and we look forward to doing more of this in the very near future, and producing material to continue to support our club chairpersons and to build this network and support people. Shane, I don't know if you want to close with anything.
No, just a massive thank you very much to everyone that contributed, yourself, Dave, and all the speakers, and definitely to every single person that's come on, that's shown an interest in getting more involved or learning more about the roles and trying to get more involved in their clubs, because, we have massive potential to grow as a sport, but we need, administrators and the people that are willing to put in the work for the sport to grow. So look, there's hopefully going to be more of these. I know there's a lot of talk in the chat there about a forum, for a chairperson's forum, which I think is a fantastic idea if we could somehow develop something like that. But there's going to be more of these workshops coming down the line for different positions in in the club. So do keep an eye out, and we'll keep you all informed. So
thanks, Shane, and thank you all guys for being with us, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.